Like you have way too much
So easy.
expertise.
Is
You're
this like
already
the
up
caveman
here.
commercial? So easy.
What do
even
you
a
mean?
caveman
Hey,
could
too
do
much
it.
expertise.
I walk up and I'm like, I don't know what the heck this is.
I don't know. What do I do here? I don't know what I'm doing.
Weaving like DNA strands on a fascinating roller coaster of endless learning, experimentation, and discovery of technology, where the destination is not the end and the journey is the most fun. This is the Helical Brew. With your hosts, Mike, Sura, Jeff, and Elizabeth.
Welcome, everybody, to the Helical Brew, episode 12, post-holiday edition. And we are all together here on a Friday, as usual, just after the Christmas time. So I think everybody's been off for most of the week or taking some of the week off, whichever. It's always my favorite week to just take off completely, no matter what, whether I do something big for the holidays or not. But the Brew Crew is back, and we have continued to tinker with the use of our logo, which has been a lot of fun. We added a couple of things as far as how to reach us. We now have a link tree. So anyone familiar with Linktree, we have we're going to continue to use at Helical Brew or Helical Brew as our hashtag and I guess you could call it profile name in pretty much everything we do, including our email address. So unless there's an exception that we find where somebody already took it, then we gotta contact them if we find another Helical Brew out there. But I don't think we will. So far we're good. And the only overlap I've seen is if you search for us in our Google results, you will find this brewery, which I look forward to visiting at the end of January, sometime during the time I'm in San Diego for the big show, the big SLAS show. I will check out this Helix Brewing and see what they're all about. And who knows? Maybe we can work something out. So yeah, just want to check in. I'm going to go around in clockwise order. We got Jeff on the road, first time on the road. I think recording the show, right?
That is correct. Yeah, I'm down in Tennessee. Take the show on the road. Yep. So
how long was that drive?
Today. Well, as Google tells you, or Apple Maps, 4.5 hours. But traffic sucked. A stop at Buc-ee's, if you don't know, which some of you might not.
What is Buc-ee's? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know
Buc-ee's is this massive. I mean, it's massive. Think of, Mike, you may know this, the I-80 truck stop.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, times 2. It's
Wow.
huge. It's huge, and it's full of people, and you can't get out of there for under $80. And that's just for 2 sandwiches. But it's really good. You can get all sorts of road snacks. Go to the bathroom, of course, but yeah, stop there. Traffic was a nightmare, wrecks, this, that, and the other. But it is what it is. I made it. I got it all set up, and we're rocking and rolling. I love it.
Well, good. Well, glad you arrived safe and sound at your destination, and I will have to check out Buc-ee's if I'm on a road trip the next time. It sounds like one of those cities in the middle of nowhere, like a like a corporate city that was created.
Yeah, I think they have like 30 gas pumps in a row.
Wow.
So, and it's just amazing. So,
Tesla chargers in the modern world, are they electrified?
No,
Buc-ee's?
I don't believe
no,
so.
they're like, no, it's all diesel here. Come on,
that's
now,
not
get
their
out of
crowd.
All right. They're going to go OG on that one. It's like, get that electric car out of here. We don't have chargers.
Just remember, these things are in the South. So
yeah,
there's no Tesla, this, that, and the other thing anywhere around here. So,
okay. All right. And I believe, Elizabeth, you headed back home ahead of the show. So you were out and about, and now you're back home.
Yeah. I
To
was
record?
out with my friends.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, having a good time. I mean, this is the week I get to see most people, and I was with
Yeah.
the family in Christmas time. It was beautiful, and we spent a lot of time with the younger guys from the family talking about automation and robotics. They were kind of curious as well, like what we're doing, and it was really nice.
they've heard about your adventures in the world of automation and robotics,
Yes,
and
they are getting
wanted
more
to know more.
curious. Yeah, they
That's
are. A
always
lot
good.
of them are in sales. Some are in film production, and many different fields. But they were very curious to hear and learn more about what we are doing. So I told them to also listen to the podcast, of course. And then yeah, it was really nice to see the family. That's the time of the year that we get to hang out, all
What
of us.
was it? I'll answer your questions as long as I see that you're subscribed to the podcast.
Please subscribe here. The link.
Please, strongly recommended.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
That's
but
good.
it was
Yeah,
really
I've
nice.
never had a. I've well, never. I say it's rare that I've had that question in the airplane, where you end up talking about what do you do, and I talk about, I don't usually mention my job as the first thing. I'm like, well, I like to travel. I'll say that first, and then we'll get into the job. But there's usually always a follow-up question when I say robotics or automation or anything like that. So it is a neat field that we're all in to spark conversation and curiosity, because it's not everybody's in it, right? And you hear about it, and I always like to hear people's perspective when you mention the word automation. They think, they might be talking about self-driving cars or, automated factories, car factories, right? Something they think about when I say life science. They're like, what? So it's always a fun conversation. And I think also, sir, you came home. You were out and about before coming home to record. So glad we just so everybody knows, we were potentially not going to record today. So we were maybe down to 2, and we shifted the time a little bit. And then what's great is now we have all 4 of us on this episode. So how's it going, sir?
It's going well. I'm feeling good, which is a
Yeah,
plus.
well, that's good.
Note to self: beware how much coconut oil you put in coffee.
I've never put coconut oil in coffee. All right. The coffee is coffee. I used to drink a lot more coffee before I went to Nespresso, and then it was like, oh man, it starts to get expensive. each one of those pods. But well, good. Glad we could all hop on and post-holiday edition. So for this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about what we're looking forward to in 2025. Big year coming up. A lot of things happening around the world, and we kicked this thing off not that long ago. Here we are, 12 episodes in, and we've only been doing this for a few months. So I think I personally have some things I'm looking forward to with what we're doing on the podcast. But in general, there's a lot of things happening right now, and we put together some show notes, and one of which. One of the topics there that Jeff had put on there, and I had kind of in the back of my mind just from different angles, whether it's vehicles or just our profession, right? How AI, and that's the topic, is being used in our profession, but also how it's being used outside, and some of the things we're looking forward to. I mean, what has caught your eye about that, Jeff, and what aspects? What are you kind of looking to see play out in 2025 for AI?
Well, I know with a change of administration, at least in the U.S., right now there's some restrictions on it. I don't know exactly to what level or what degree. And there's probably some skepticism within the agencies, even the government, as it exists, at least in the United States. And there's probably some rightfully thought out process to that skepticism. I know there's probably a lot of individuals who are skeptical as well. I do have some. Okay, it's not completely all skeptical, whatever. To me, sometimes it feels like AI is almost a stored procedure like you would find in a database. Oh, I'm going to call this procedure and these steps are going to happen. What's 2 plus 2? Well, here's that stored procedure for that. What that might entail for our industry is maybe decision-making on, hey, if this particular incident happens, then this triggers something, and then something else will have to happen. I don't know where we are in advancement. I'm not sure. Got to be careful not to watch too many sci-fi movies. Blade Runner comes to mind when I watch about AI and things, and obviously Terminators and those types of things. But we're far, far, far from Skynet type things. Maybe where this could play a really good part is the combination of chemical compounds leading to, these particular combinations of compounds in a safe environment in silico through a computer, supercomputer can determine if you put these together, you're dead. Or there's going to be a release of gas that's, 10 miles wide, it's going to wipe out an entire city. Where I think that's where AI could play a really big role. So you can run these things over and over and over again in simulation based in different combinations and say, okay, what might this happen? But again, that requires a lot of data collection to make those determinations. So we're going to have to start doing data collection faster and more of it on our side to get confidence built into those particular models for large learning models, AI models, those types of things. Because there's always going to be this human element behind it. You may run it through the AI model, but anyone on this call, scientist who's in the lab, is going to have to make that final determination and say, okay, this is what's been presented to me. Does this make sense from a logical perspective? So we'll see what happens. I'm optimistic, but we'll see what happens.
Right on, right on. And so, Sura and Elizabeth, what do you see? I mean, are you getting requests specifically, including AI as part of the request? You see in from customers, integration with it, or
No, currently from our side, I don't see that request to be integrated
yeah,
with AI. I just think that more vendors are trying to implement that as an offering for their customers. And I'm curious to see how next year will look like in terms of how the customers, the users will receive that technology and use it, and what results will deliver to them. Yeah, I've seen a lot of companies now that are in data handling, data management, LIMS, that are trying to implement that, as well as liquid handling companies too that are talking about, implementing AI into the workflow development. It's something that we will see as the customer starts using, and we see more user cases and see how that performs eventually for them.
right on.
I don't know if we're talking
One thing
about.
that
Sorry, go ahead, Elizabeth.
No, I was just going to continue with the thought of when we talk about scheduling software and we say, we have a dynamic scheduler, and some confuse that with, artificial intelligence, and is that built into the scheduler? And not necessarily is that, but we have the capability of making decisions during the run and making some, adding some nodes within the workflow that can allow you to make decisions and retrieve data, and based on that make certain activities happen within the workflow. So that's why it's called dynamic scheduler. So that's the differentiator between using AI or having a dynamic scheduler that is true dynamic, that can really mold to the events in the process.
Yeah, I guess I can be a bit more specific about where I was coming from, with that in terms of requests. It's more, we're, I think everyone here on the call is, we're tasked with something to implement, right? Whether it's automation, a mechanical build or a software deployment, setting up a piece of software. It's just more, are there any inquiries, or are you getting inquiries around, I want you to implement this aspect of AI into as part of the job, or is it something they're generally taking on their own? If that's coming up at all in a discussion, it's more just are people looking to source something they've heard about, right? Because a lot of times when they ask for automation, they go, "Oh, I heard about this workflow can be implemented in an automated fashion. I'd like you to deploy that." Same thing with AI, right? There's a lot of discussion about how it's being used. Finding proteins is one that I've heard a lot about, where there's some advantage to that, to be able to find different proteins using AI, because it's very much data centric, right? And it has infinitely more access to data simultaneously than we do as humans. So it works well. Some people debate whether that's actually AI or not, but Or like you said, Jeff, just one gigantic database to pull from that's bigger than what's in everybody's brain around the world simultaneously. Which, yeah, okay, that can be said. But is it novel at that point? Who knows, right? I mean, that's in the eye of the beholder, I guess. But that's where I think the question is coming from.
Yeah, I think the biggest struggle is putting a definition of what artificial intelligence actually means.
Right.
Because like Elizabeth said, a dynamic scheduling software, dynamic anything, is just making decisions based on an event. And it's localized. It's not like
that's not artificial intelligence. Yeah, that's.
But what is artificial intelligence, and is it a misnomer? Because I'll agree with Elizabeth in the fact that I've not had anybody ask me about that at all. I think it's the furthest thing from their mind. Not that they're not interested, but they're so busy with the day-to-day things they have to do. That's not something they're really that interested in or have time to put together or talk to vendors about putting together. I think it's going to be a tougher sell on the vendor side to the customers to prove its worth. Because I think there's going to be a diminishing return on, well, you said this AI so-and-so was going to do this, this, and this. Well, I haven't seen this return on this investment. I don't know if I like your product anymore because it's really not doing anything for me. You have the word artificial intelligence. Well, it doesn't seem very smart to me. So we just need to put some genuine definition behind what that means.
Yeah. Yeah. It could use a lot more definition other than, creating images from keywords, or things like that. Right. I mean, there's a lot of these kind of novel things, writing papers, writing anything. It does amazingly well, but it's also working off of an incredible amount of data to be able to source all simultaneously and figure that out. But the fact that there's whole processors built around this, and that's one of my other looking forward to in 2025 is, to see this continue to play out with Apple's business model, right? Most computer companies have always sourced their microprocessor on top of that, putting, an operating system. And Apple has really changed that game, kind of like what Qualcomm did with the Snapdragon, right? There, where you have this complete operating system and processor all coming from one company, and the amount of optimization you can do is just it's amazing. So and where that gets implemented with the AI side of things, I'm super curious to see how that plays out next year. Just for consumers, right? Just as a consumer of those products, to be able to see what it's doing. I'm already enjoying its mail consolidation for an email address I've had for 22 years. It's like, oh, nice, right? It's showing me, and it's accurate. These are the 6 emails today that you need to pay attention to. I'm like, perfect. I like that. But any other thoughts on AI? I know we've.
Well, I have many thoughts.
Well, please.
Sorry, I was waiting for my turn, but I think that you've got 2 questions, right? You've got what are we looking forward to, and what people, clients, customers might be asking for, right? Because there's a laundry list that I'm looking forward to, including some of the things that are mentioned, like dynamic schedules that are actual dynamic schedules that have actual integrated algorithms that can make decisions, based on what they see. But I think what our customers are asking for, or some of them that have the forthright to actually think about these questions, are things like, the digital twin and simulation topics that we've discussed before, right? Some of these virtual labs that are built with digital twins of actual laboratory setups. And these are potential areas where AI models can help predict outcomes and design efficient experiments and scale a little bit better through trial and error. Those are things that I've gotten requests on, and that we're working with a client and helping them set up with a couple of other collaborators. Those are interesting things that I can see AI making an immediate impact on, that are something that the clients can actually see bringing, value to what they're doing. And then something you discussed, Mike, was about, what are we doing with potential proteins and AI, and looking in that area, but also precision medicine and personalized medicine has a nice real estate or fodder for feeding into AI models that could potentially help us tailor processes to individual patients. That's not something that I've been tasked with or asked with, but those are things that I've read up on that might be very interesting. But, I'm still on that line of like, who's actually doing the work to get there and how feasible is what they're doing when it comes to health related matters, at least. It's a whole other topic, a whole other episode that we can do.
No, it's
Yeah.
just, and this is all a looking forward thing, and I think that's great to hear that it's coming up in customer inquiries, and what you were saying about the scheduling too, right? These are all areas where I think we see the entry point for AI to potentially flourish, right? And personalized medicine is certainly another one where. I remember it was Notable Labs. Remember a company, Notable Labs, out of San Francisco, and the foundation of that company. It's a very interesting story with the father of the founder passed away from a glioblastoma. It was a very aggressive brain cancer, and the company was really founded as a kind of a response to that, right? And they ended up working on leukemia because it turns out, for what the approach they took with using a lab site, Echo Mac, to basically create concoctions of known off-the-shelf approved medications to create a concoction in each individual well that they could use as a weapon against the cancer, right? So you have this, cocktail in each well, and that random access element of the echo where it's got the, source and target moving under each other is really a great application of the echo, one of the best I've ever seen. And then they would go give it to the clinician and say, hey, here you go. Here's some cocktails we came up with. They're the ones who actually need to go try it out. But and these things would have sufficient, effect on some leukemias, which could be very individual, right? There's a big span of how leukemias respond, and but yeah, implementing AI, taking that to another level where you add AI to that decision making matrix that's defining what cocktail is going to be created, right? And because they already had some intelligence sort of behind that, I think, but it was, AI was just starting to be discussed within our community. So yeah,
but even areas
totally.
that like are very complex, right? Like regulatory is very complex, and to make sure that you're keeping track of what are the requirements and in what region and things like that, I think AI can actually really help.
Good point.
Provide that a good quality management system powered by AI.
That's right. Yeah. Oh my gosh, the regulations around the world are so subtlety.
And the human oversight burden is high there, right?
Oh, big time. Big time. Our regulatory specialist at my last medical device company, wow, worth his weight in gold. I mean, he was able to navigate just all this tacit knowledge to be able to navigate after working for like 5 medical device companies. So yeah, I totally get that.
So that brings up a great point, sir. I was actually going to head into that thread, and you brought it up. I'm glad you did.
Segue.
You have the regulation. And it's not like the AI is going to write those regulations, because it can really only generate something of use with enough data to do so. And Mike said the one guy was like gold because he could navigate. He wasn't necessarily writing regulations, but it's kind of like, okay, well, if you have the regulation being written by the thing that's supposed to navigate the regulation, who's going to regulate the regulator type of thing? So it's kind of like, and then, okay, well, who's responsible? Should something go sideways? God forbid something goes sideways. Okay, well, is it the AI's fault? Is it the company's fault who implemented the AI? Is it the government's fault? And everyone's allowed some sort of, plausible deniability or lack of, you can't come after me. I have it. It's in my, because they're going to petition for that. And then, you go back to, again, the government saying AI can only take you so far. At that point, it has to be human intervention to make decisions, those types of things. But I agree with you. There is potential there for helping offload some of that human burden with all that they have to deal with, but who's going to write the regulations going forward to regulate the AI?
But there's different parts of that, right? There's like compliance, and then there's making sure that you're writing the documentation and the guidelines. And I think AI as a stepping stone into that field couldn't at least ensure compliance, right? And I think that's a nice entryway for that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You don't want to see in the signature of the regulation, written by Terminator Model 101 or something like
Stay
that.
away from Terminator.
Hello, I have a submission for regulation number
1000.
1526859
It was signed by Al. What's his name? Al 9000. Oh, great.
Oh, great! It's all written
fantastic.
for us. Awesome. Let's just put that in the record. Yeah. It's so much to be done there, and it's always the hype factor too. I think where how much is being hyped ahead of where it really is. I think we've seen that with a lot of automation in day-to-day life, like automated cars, self-driving cars, right? I mean, the hype and the reality behind it. I feel like AI is in a similar boat, maybe even a longer, slower trajectory than even self-driving cars, where it's just going to take a long time for this to become anything that's even close to sentient.
But I think that's been the
Let's go.
problem is people overhyped it, got super excited about it,
Yes.
that the rest of us were just sick of hearing about it because we don't believe it, because it was just way too much and there was nothing tangible coming out of it. But if you take a step back and you sift through all the BS that they hyped up around it, there's actual practical applications that somebody can just grab and run with.
Yeah.
It's just somebody actually focus on it instead of focusing on how awesome it could be. You know what I mean?
Right. It's classic stock market, throw a carrot out there and chase it with investment, right? Throw a carrot, chase it with investment. I think that, that fortunately was not, talk about a segue, the thing that was the carrot that eventually made Tesla one of the largest market cap
What was it?
car companies
1.6
in the world.
trillion? What?
Right?
Which is the?
Yeah.
What did you just
The
send us
T,
today?
yes.
Trillion, right?
It's right. Market cap versus other companies, other car companies. And granted, the car business, any business that's that capital intensive, where you've got that much tooling and factories and metal and a lot of the parts that make a car are commodities, right? So the metal is, right? I mean, there's most of the weight of your car is actually considered a commodity in the market. Those are never great products to have a high margin with. But when you spin out of the car business, that's what Tesla's value is. Basically, they've become a high-end electric charging company, a home power, backup power, battery balancing, power grid balancing system as well, and all these other technologies. Not to mention that SpaceX is a different company, but I'm not trying to pump Tesla, but I think it does show you the separation of how the market looks at technologies.
Tesla
And fortunately,
free crowd
self-driving
here.
wasn't right. Tesla free crowd. No Teslas on this
Open
call,
for
although
sponsorship.
We've all had different experiences, right, sir? We've all had different experiences driving. Yeah, Honda. I know you're doing electric cars. If you'd like to come on, and, throw down with Tesla. Come on, yeah. Show me the money. The Tesla hype around self-driving, fortunately, was not the thing that the stock market has carried. Because if that were the case, it would be abysmal. But it's something I'm amazed. I am continually amazed at how they've been able to just keep that going. I took a Cybertruck for a testing, a spin. 22 miles in autonomous. Of course, I had my hands floating on the wheel as you're supposed to. But it did everything
because the blood was gone.
on US 101 between
Oh.
Foster City and Palo Alto. I was like,
That's dangerous.
yeah, it even parked the car.
That's awesome.
So,
But see, I think stuff like that is very nice in terms of how it plays well with society. We've been trying to keep drunk drivers off the road since I was sentient, right? And we can't keep them off, right? But when you've got the self-driving car, not to promote it in any way as like a relief for this, at least you have another layer of trust that in any case, the car has that ability to like mind itself when the human is not taking charge or responsibility of not driving, because buzz driving does make a difference whether you're drunk or not.
If only the car in that situation
shut
could
down.
like sniff the air and say,
nope.
Okay, the
Or
steering
gauge the
wheel
lack
no
of
longer
motor
does
control
anything.
and lock it down. Just be like, no, dude.
Yeah, lock it
You're
down.
not driving.
Like exactly. Like if it's going to take over after going through one of these automated experiences in a car, I can take the wheel at any time and it shuts down, right? So
That's
if
a
somebody's,
government grant waiting to happen, isn't it? Like, can't you do something, Tesla, where you tap into that and like allow it to have that extra layer of like protection?
right? Like lockout mode, the pedals and the steering wheel
Tag
no longer
out,
do
lockout.
anything for the driver.
Well,
Lock out, tag out, get it home.
Tow truck just
Well, I
shows
can
up.
attest-
Sorry, sir, you're not driving.
I can attest to the drive down here. It wasn't drunk drivers; it was human impatience, and that you
Oh,
cannot
yeah.
account for. Because
Oh,
I
yeah.
saw a
I feel like
Cadillac
you need a kick
Escalade
in the butt in the
cut
chair for
across 3 lanes in between 2 little cars, back out in front of a tractor trailer. I'm just sitting in my truck, minding my own damn business, and it's like, okay, what do you plan to do? You're only 100 yards ahead of me, and you're not Michael Schumacher here in your Cadillac Escalade. Human impatience you will not ever be able to account for. Unless the
Yeah.
car says, okay, I've seen you've made some, based on G-forces, this, that, and the other thing. Now the car is doing all the thinking. So you might as well just start at the car and say, go from here to here. Like you said, Palo Alto, Foster City.
Can
and
I
just
say
let it
something
go.
though? Human impatience.
Yes.
Like, I get it. We're trying to like correct our fellow human beings by like seeing the guy drive up on you and then you're hitting the brake to slow down. Like you're making some sort of difference in your mind on how you're regulating this person. But people have actual problems. So like some people are doing like below the speed limit while I'm trying to just get home because I have an actual medical emergency today. That was a problem for me.
Oh, my.
And you're like, why is everyone driving so freaking slow
I'm like,
today?
why are you letting
Everyone in
me
front of me.
bro?
And at that point, the car's asking you, what shall we be, where will you be going today? Take me
Yeah.
home.
No, he's
What's the
trying
reason?
to teach
Emergency.
me, right? He's trying to be like, slow down. See, I'm gonna go extra slow because you're
Oh,
riding
I
up on
see.
me, and I'm like, I'm about to die. Like this isn't a moment.
This
for
is
teaching.
California, dude. This is how we drive.
Dude, like, slow down, all right? What's your rush,
I
man?
almost got out of the car and I was like, we're about to have a problem, bro. Like, you gotta let me pass you.
Hey, so, I mean, it's like that opening scene for those who've seen the movie Office Space, right? That opening scene where he's trying to get to work and he's like, he changes lanes and all of a sudden that lane goes faster and changes lanes and then the other lane goes faster. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, we've all been there. That's and I got to tell you, in Indiana, I have never driven faster and just been going with traffic. I'm not the fastest guy on the road. I'm just going with traffic. I've never had a higher average speed than in Indiana. Oh my
Hey,
God.
man.
You
465.
guys drive fast. Holy
Yes, we do.
smokes.
Like more than 65.
465, the loop
like
around.
90.
But
So
there's a
this
reason
is
it's the
why I
racing
should
capital
move
of
to
the
Indiana.
U.S.
I got it. I
Oh.
knew you were there for a reason.
I mean, you're doing
In Nevada, I
75
thought
and
it was
people are
fast.
passing you.
Nevada's like 80, 85, but
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
Indiana's got it.
It's crazy, even
No,
though
I
the sign
usually
says 55.
chill. It's just the universe knows when you don't have time to be chill, and it throws
You
everything
need
in
to
your
get there
way.
faster.
Yep. I've been there. It's like, why? Or when you're at an airport, you're like, why?
We're all best friends now. You know more about me than you should. But yeah, that was my day today.
Why now?
Not
We've
here.
all been there, and we'll all be there again. So yeah, yeah. Well, that's yeah. San Diego, I've never felt like I've been stuck in traffic all that much. But then again, I mean, there was one time on the 805, but yeah, where it was like stop and go all the way from Mira Mesa downtown, like really slow. But you guys don't have that bad of traffic in San Diego. I don't.
Well, define not that bad of traffic because I
Depends.
don't think people actually know how to drive in San Diego.
405. Well, yeah,
And God
maybe
forbid there's
that's-
like one raindrop in the sky. Then it's just
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, nobody knows what to do.
Oh, that jacks up the airport too, man. I remember arriving
Airport
to
shuts
torrential
down.
downpours
Yeah.
at the airport.
Meanwhile,
Holy
San
schmoly.
Francisco, there's like torrents of rain and hail, and they're like, all right,
It's no
your
problem.
flight's on time.
Our choice is only whether we're going to run 2 runways or 1, in San Francisco. But yeah. Well, another one that has been talked about on the show before, and certainly AI could play a role in this space. It has to some degree in the general part of the industry, and when I say that, like warehouses and things like that, decision making based AI in mobile robots. We've seen some dabbling of mobile robots in our industry. A couple here and there, that have been promoted as implementations within someone's lab or a corporation's lab to run a workflow. But I think most mobile robots we've seen so far have been on the show floor at some event somewhere around the world. Are they going to gain some more traction in 2025? I know for sure that we're going to see more of them in 2025. I think there's no doubt about that. And some of them are coming to the point where they're getting adopted. But it's nothing big has happened yet. I think we can all agree on that. There hasn't been a big push for mobile robots yet, just some inquiries. So
But
thoughts
I
on
think they're
that?
thinking too big, aren't they? Like, I feel like mobile robots people are just thinking way too big. Like, oh, it'll deliver plates to robot systems. It'll move between floors and it needs door sensors. Like, what about
Yeah.
just basic interaction with, cobots and lab robots with like other IoT devices just to streamline simple tasks? Why don't we start small, communicate statuses, completion times to management systems or do storage and analysis interaction with those IoT devices. Why, if we start small, then we can actually see some bigger gains, I think, when we use cobots and lab robots.
I think you bring up a great point, Sura, and it's like a lot of times the first implementation of robotic arms in our industry was also kind of a misfire, right? If you look at the early implementations of like industrial robots or just, robots in general and lab automation, there were a lot of misfires there. It was some were like, oh, let's go all in with the biggest thing we can put in there. And you're using rule sets. You're using a new technology in something.
It's too many
with the
variables.
old-
Let's just throw
the
too
old
many
rule
variables on
sets.
there. Yeah, just keep it defined.
Keep it defined, and I think that's something. I'll bring up a company name, Robust.ai. I really like what they're doing. That's actually founded by the former he was the co-founder of Rethink Robotics, the original Rethink, not the relaunched one I mentioned earlier, Rodney Brooks. And Robust.ai has a cool concept. It is optimizing what the user sees and what their experience is with a mobile cart. It's a retrieval product, right? Something you can take. Somebody loads it with the product that's going to be boxed up somewhere else in the plant, and this thing knows exactly what to tell you, exactly what mode to put itself in, where to go, and the UI is constantly adapting to what the user needs at a given time. And it's just a basic thing like that, but it's so well thought out that these are kind of things that have gotten missed, I think, in mobile robot implementations, where can I look at the screen and find out what the robot's doing at this point in time, or do I have to go back to the software because we're using this old scheme of, oh, go to the scheduling software, it has all the information, this thing's just a slave to that, right? It's just it does whatever the scheduling software says. It's not really interactive, you know what I mean? And I think that's something the Robust.ai concept is kind of cool. I think a lot of that could be really helpful in our industry, just to be able to walk up to any part on a screen in front of you or your iPad or your phone and just have relevant information presented to you automatically. Wouldn't it be great?
Yeah, and I think it's
Well, I
like you
think
said,
there's-
people just like to make the biggest impact with the biggest thing that they can think of. But those ultimately, there's just too many variables, too many things that you have to like think too hard about to get it to work. And oftentimes it fails. And if that's going to be your first foray into the industry, why don't we actually connect it to things that are actively working and have that, low-hanging fruit as the success and then build on that. Sorry to cut you off, Jeff.
No, you're right. You're right. It's stop thinking so massive, because if you build the one mission, yeah, that's a place to start. But you're going to be continuing to think ahead and say, well, we've accomplished that mission and we're doing it really, really well. Hey, what else can we do? We've kind of built this product to do other things, but we didn't start there. We started here knowing we needed to get a foot into the market. Now let's take it to the next level, and then take it to the next level. I mean, the first iteration of the iPhone or the watch wasn't the end all be all, but over time, it just got more and more and more things built into it that it's like, oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Yeah, like the
So I
AirPods
think
you
that's
were
right.
talking about the other day. Now we've got like
Yes.
hearing aid available
Yes,
after so many
exactly.
iterations. It didn't just come out of the gate that way, right?
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh! I went to steak dinner with just a quick thing. I went to steak dinner with my mom. Noisy environment, and they worked perfect.
Nice.
Yes.
Everything was
Awesome.
clear. The clarity. Her, not having to raise voice, repeat yourself, all that. It was just
Now,
amazing.
does that
It's-
focus in on who
It
she's
focused every
facing?
time I spoke. She could hear it kind of zoning in and pulling up my voice quickly,
That's awesome.
Awesome.
and then letting the environment sift in later. If I was quiet, right? But
Yeah.
it was conversation 3 feet apart. I mean, it was like night and day. Those standard issue hearing aids just don't cut it.
That is
Yeah. So
Mike,
that
you
was
win the
huge.
award, the feel good Christmas gift of the year.
That
Good
was
job.
like
Yeah.
Yeah.
there we go. Let's go.
Awesome.
It powers. All right, I'll still be an Apple fanboy, Tim.
Yeah. It's like, it's funny. I find a lot of engineers are just like, we can't like Apple products because it doesn't let us do or, the things that we want to do on our computers. But it seamlessly integrates into so many things that it's hard to not be an Apple fan when you're not at work, right? Like, and you can create options for
Yeah.
work on it if it needs to be your work computer. But like, there's definitely a nice feeling when you come home and everything just kind of like clicks in place and works together,
You feel like you're all day with the PC. You're being blocked out. You're like, psych. No, you can't do that. No,
And you come
can't do
home
that.
and Mac
Psych.
is like, welcome home.
Oh, welcome. Would you like me to turn the lights on for you?
Even my car likes my iPhone better. It's like CarPlay now available.
Turning to you, Elizabeth, I'm curious. Do you think do you see a mobile robot being implemented or getting more involved in mobile robots in 2025? Do you see that in the
I
horizon
don't.
something?
It's kind of hard to say because
Yeah.
we've seen them bring, like, so many companies brought mobile robots to the market, and so far I have seen none implemented in the actual lab. I've seen prototypes, I've seen use cases, lots of promises from different companies, and when it comes to deploying that in the actual environment, I haven't seen anything ready yet.
Okay.
And it's kind of like they're pushing the technology, like you said, Sura. Like, why don't we start with the basic? At least that will allow us to play around with the technology, let the users feel how it is to work around a mobile robot, and later on we can implement more into it. It's To me, I see that next year, hopefully, we can deploy a couple of projects with a mobile robot that actually can be around the lab. We get it to work with the scheduling software as well, that we are looking into those things as well from our side of the business. But it's very difficult to say that it's going to be a market for for mobile robots that immediate. I think 2026 maybe we will have ready to deploy product. Right now is more case studies, trying to find a niche for it, and then also like convincing the labs to use it. I find that in the US it's probably harder because the labs are very tight in space. When I go and visit the labs, they are very small, tight spaces that we can really, like, we have to optimize the footprint of the our workstations and the automated systems to fit in very small areas, where I don't see a mobile robot being able to work in that space together with a with other humans. So there is a lot to do, I think, in terms of redesigning lab spaces to accommodate mobile robots, accounting for, how it's going to move. Is it going to be a moving across labs or even different levels within buildings? Or what is the goal with the mobile robot?
Yeah. Yeah. Space is a consideration. And that's some of the newer designs I've seen are trying to mitigate that not in terms of user experience yet, but I think they'll get there eventually. It's more the ability to navigate. Like, most of the mobile robots we've seen, they navigate like a tank, right? Where you've got 4 support wheels and 2 drive wheels, and it just turn or go one direction to the other along its axis. And these omnidirectional approaches are amazing. I saw one in California the other day that was just turn on a dime. It's like the Tesla Cybertruck. It's got 4-wheel steering. That thing turns better than a Honda Civic, because all 4 wheels are in action. So you can, but omnidirectional wheels with the right implementation, I think will help out with that a little bit. But then again, space is space, and I love the chair problem. What if the chair gets left? Just pushed back a little bit, like the robot can't get by. That's a totally realistic scenario, and no amount of drive motor technology is gonna fix that.
Well,
Yeah, even if somebody leaves a box or anything in the middle of the aisle and
drops a plate and
that's
leaves it on the floor, the wheel gets stuck on it.
That's
Some consumable.
I think we touched on this on our last episode, right, where we mentioned like the Target robot vacuums that are able to navigate around with things like that. So I think it's possible, but to Elizabeth's point, I haven't seen it well done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And plus, you have to, if you're the person who wants to implement it, you have to, a good upper level management should be asking the questions of, well, what's my return here? What do you want it to do? And will it do that? And does it make sense? They have to ask those questions. And the person who wants to implement it, whether it's an integrator or the person who hired that integrator, they have to make that case. And if it's not a strong case, I can see them saying, you know what? I can hire 4 more people to move that plate from over here to over there via contractors. We've talked about this before. A lot cheaper than this robot would allow me to do. Can I run overnight? No, I can't. But unless I make another shift or a couple different shifts, whatever, but I don't see the return on the investment. So it's going to take some time, unfortunately. But
I think
I see the 24. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think we're just in this place now where companies got used to a certain way of being because of COVID and after COVID and tightening the strings and realizing that people can do more with less. That there's we're kind of encountering that problem where we encountered a few years ago where not a lot of vendors were innovating in the robotic liquid handling space. Now it's companies aren't willing to put out the money to innovate in their labs because they're just going back to good old humanity. We'll grab a couple contractors and a couple of interns, we'll make the scientists do junior level work, and they'll do it because they just want to get hired, right?
It's true.
So if we're not going to do that, if the higher ups aren't going to provide that budget, we're not going to see really cool robots in labs and really cool labs being built, right? Because they just aren't going to fund it.
Yeah, the amount of surplus equipment that ended up on the market after COVID was a shutdown for whether it was great new technology or not. It was a blocker because all of a sudden you're like, well, no, we put all this money in. Go use that stuff, man. We don't need no.
Not even robot pieces, intelligent, people, directors of efficient teams, right? Now they're dime a dozen.
Resources across the board.
Yeah.
Whether they're people, employees and people or equipment. It was overdone and suffocated some other areas of the market.
I think we need more work to drive companies to spend more to put the right people and resources and robots in place.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's better choosing the right thing. I do think the 24/7 thing is a major justifier of mobile robots. I think that part of it, there are workflows that, I looked at with customers where the numbers are clear, right? A mass spec to post-processing workflow, right? 2 different rooms very often, 2 different departments, screening and mass spec. And they're probably a good thing you don't put those things in the same room, just because the way they're used offline or what have you, right? I mean, high throughput room is going to be nobody while it's doing its thing, maybe a few people to check in on it, versus the mass spec room is going to be intensively populated with people pulling data out and all that. And I think there's workflows like that where the mobile makes a total amount of sense, but I think, the all-encompassing solution approach is not the way to attack those things. It's focus, write software that specifically does that, optimize it, and make it just bulletproof for what it does. And I think that's one way to get more adoption, right? Is to start with known quantities and work up from there instead of trying to go replace a robot on a rail with a mobile robot.
But even if you
and try
had
to do it across
one
the lab.
mobile robot in a lab that I had a lab that had 7 systems that, we built for it. And Elizabeth, I think we talked about how can we work with Genera to provide the error messages to catch this overnight in real time and look into the camera to see if you can move the robot arm to correct it yourself. You can so easily just, if you had a mobile robot, send it to that room to get something from a storage device to feed into that system and keep the run going, right? Something like that with a lab that was running back in the day of high throughput screening, that would be a good justification. I just don't think we find those very often, but I think that's a good case for a mobile robot, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and some of these legacy devices aren't necessarily amenable to mobile external feeding. Think of a storage device. I don't know, if you were to feed something that's not on a plate stage where a robot arm's accessing it, but if you're trying to open a door on an incubator, and then you've got to open up the second glass door, which has a sensor on it.
Now we're getting to details. Let's talk about where this nest is that you're putting the plate on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've got to take. But again, who's going to go back and revamp their legacy products? Nobody. It costs too much money, and they don't sell enough of them. So,
well, we've got to get to the point where things are equivalent, right? The cost of the thing justifies the amount of money you're losing from the experiment that's lost, that's been run 24/7, that failed, right? Or the human being that in my case had to drive down from Del Mar to figure it out. That's probably not something you want to be doing at midnight.
Right. Don't want that short straw.
No.
Sorry, child, I shall be back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll never forget, I think in Switzerland, it's still, you're not allowed to do that, over the weekend. It's actually against the law to go into your office over the weekend.
I knew there was a reason I wanted to move to Switzerland.
Oh, boy.
And go work in the lab and I need to reload the plates, so I'm going to start it on Friday. I need to come in Sunday morning. That's technically you're not supposed to do that. I've heard that from folks. That's where you really need the mobile robot.
Some companies still do that.
Yeah.
I think DuPont had a rule when I worked there that you aren't supposed to do that, and it was a safety thing that they were going to get marked down for. Yeah.
I'd be all right, tell you what, I've got this catalog page open to this mobile robot. I would like one of these, or the experiment's never going to get done, folks. Your choice.
Loan operator scares companies to death because they don't want someone getting hurt. How are they going to find out you've passed out from whatever, some sort of gas leak, whatever? Take worst case scenario. You're on the floor. No one knows you're there until someone comes in at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Sir's been on the floor for 12 hours. Oh, great.
Hey, don't
I mean, that's not good. No, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm just saying loan operator for large corporations is a scary situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's very true. And then, yeah.
So we're moving to Switzerland, is what I'm hearing. Awesome.
That's a long road trip.
No, you get no pushback from me. I love Switzerland.
Yep, let's do it.
Let's go for it. Mentioning, it seems like we're just in the zone when it comes to segues.
I know.
Jeff, you
I'm
mentioned
with
that
you, Mike.
legacy
Picking up.
instruments. Let's talk about legacy manufacturers and legacy instruments. Not to say that they're old, and by saying legacy, we're just talking about, I mean, this industry, there's some devices where you only have one or two or three players because, there's a tremendous amount of R&D and, of course, patents that always kind of boxes people out from coming up with other versions of stuff. But, will lower cost devices start to become accessible and challenge legacy vendors? Do you see anything like that in the horizon? I can't think of one. Oh, well.
Is it too soon?
No.
I feel like there was such a backlog from COVID that is it too soon to think that we're gonna have low cost things on the market? People are still trying to get what they ordered years ago.
Well, they could buy the fact that they could buy used stuff for
Yeah,
10 cents on the
pennies.
dollar in a lot of cases. It's like, oh yeah, we don't need these 20
Right, so there's lots of used stuff.
liquid handlers.
Is anybody making cheap alternatives of robots that are out there now?
Well, there are. So I mean, okay,
Other than
one
pipettes?
that was a clear. I'll mention is this Trisonic? Remember Trisonic from SLAS, right? So Trisonic is it's kind of like a miniaturized, lower cost ATS. Which this would be what, Mac, PC, and Linux? I don't know.
Oh my.
Was it Andrew? The graphite robot, Andrew? That was pretty small, that arm that can do the pipetting.
Yeah.
That was pretty...
The pipetting.
Andrew, so I recently saw Sophie actually, she's worked for them at the, since the beginning. I'm trying to think of which show. I think it was ADLM. And I had seen her in forever. It was either ADLM or Barcelona. And yes, she's still there. And Andrew's owned by Waters now. So the Waters acquisition, I think, it's definitely narrowed their focus, I think, on what they're doing. But they're actually, they're thriving. They've got a whole new pipette system. But yeah, it's a benchtop pipetter.
That was super crowded, that booth, when it first came out. Everyone was so excited. Something so simple and light.
Yeah, deployable. You had the ability to use real, now they've got a whole upgraded platform where you can use, real deal, pipetting things. It was kind of an internally driven technology at first, but with Waters, I think they've been able to firm up that approach. And their software, I think, is what really sells that product, right? I mean, even me, I don't use this stuff day to day at all. I just was able to create a quick workflow with what they had, pipette tips here, everything set up, and it just did it. It uses cameras to kind of auto teach itself. So impressive product, and it's clearly surviving.
You're not the benchmark, though, Mike. You have way too much expertise for us to be even Mike did it.
Even.
You have way too much expertise.
Is this
already
the caveman commercial? So easy.
What do you mean? Too much expertise.
I walk up and I'm like, I don't know what the heck this is.
What do I do here? I don't know what I'm doing. I've never programmed a Hamilton TCAT Perkin-Elmer, and I was able to get an Andrew working. So that's what I mean by that.
You're just too good. I believe it.
No. You're too kind, sir. You're just too kind. I will make you work out the reliance. No, it was a fun demonstration. I think it's a well marketed product, and it's like you said, their booth was absolutely packed when that thing first came out, and but yeah, I mean, ultrasonic fluid transfer, right, with the Trisonic, getting into the Echo territory, Echo ATS territory. Yeah. I mean, that's something that was on the show floor at SLAS in Boston, and last I checked, I think they're going to have a booth at SLAS San Diego. So that's one I'm curious about. Liquid Metrics, the award winners, I think we mentioned them last time, right? They won the new product award this year, and they're going to be coming on strong for next year. But that's not really a competing technology. It's a measurement technology, right? It's a validation technology for dispensing or pipetting. So you get very high precision, non-contact liquid measurement with that. But yeah, I can't think of any. It's like you said, maybe it's not the right. It's too early, too soon, too soon. It's
Well,
like,
I've had some interaction with a current customer who has brought in now two U factory arms, which are like $9,000 from China, something like that. So I guess they're having some success with that, but from a price point perspective, they couldn't necessarily pass it up. Now, how's the quality? I don't know. They seem to be happy with it. We
Everything's
created
made
a
in
driver
China
for it.
anyway, right?
We'll see. Oh, I don't, yeah, Thailand or wherever.
not well. I mean, the the two most well-known robot arms are made in either Canada or the U.S.
No, I meant like general life stuff on the bottom of your plates.
Right. Everything you own is made in China.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and there's benefits of some products that if you want to go to China, it's an opportunity to go visit your vendor in China. Also, you could just choose your vendor and where it's manufactured. Go visit your vendor. I highly recommend if you buy a Stably arm, go visit their factory in France. It's great. Bring your ski.
Such a good point you make, Mike.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I love that point. Yeah.
don't buy based on where it's built, right? And not because of where it's built necessarily because it needs to be built in that country, because you want to visit.
You can vacation there, yeah.
trying to
It's a
share
business
my
trip, I
knowledge here.
promise.
Right.
Absolutely is. I mean, when
What's
I
its
jumped,
expense for-
nobody minded when I jumped from vendor to customer, and now we're the customer. It's like, oh, we've got to go visit my factory because we were the vendor of the robots. Now we're buying the robots, and like everybody was like, oh, no problem. Need to qualify. So,
What's this expense for a stay at a ski lodge? Oh, I was just entertaining. That's all.
well, that's a
Client
little
call,
bold.
for
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they deploy those U factory arms yet, Mike? Jeff?
Did they what?
Deploy those U factory arms, the $9,000 ones?
One of them they've deployed already. The second one, we had one on our team who was working with it in his house to get the driver developed and how it would function and that kind of stuff. Obviously, robots are a little more complex than just your standard liquid handler dispensers, send the command and whatever. But I don't think we've sent it back yet. It's still in test. So
okay.
first of the year, we'll see some progress.
Yeah, it's very much modeled after the Kuka. The Kuka Iwa. It's like a lot of these robots that this tends to be either a UR flavor or a Kuka Iwa flavor. I think this one fits into the Kuka category. Kind of like Neura. You remember Neura Robotics out of Germany? Yeah, that was another one. Not at this price point, but it's similar, approach where they're offering a lower cost robot arm. Who knows where it's made, with a gripper included. But yeah, no, it's usually it always comes down to software at the end of the day. What you can do with the software, how confident you are with the software, and then the mechanics after that. I think is this full 1, 2?
Or how fast you can call ReadySoft to be like, do you have this driver?
Yeah. Well, robot drivers, not all drivers are created equal when it comes to how much work it's going to take to implement. Robots definitely fit into that category.
Robot drivers are
Amen.
the hardest ones, I would say.
Yeah, each one has their own, sometimes you have to write your own parser, like on a Stoibly. Sometimes they already have the parser, and then there's a command set. Yeah, it's you're having to really translate between two different worlds when it comes to that. But yeah, I mean, I was just looking on the web here. The prices are ranging anywhere from like 4,000 to 8,000. It looks like in terms of what you can get one of those arms for. It's like 7 or 8 axis, something like that. I don't know. Let's go look at that image again. It's got a lot of
You're
joints.
gonna have to do some work.
That's a lot of joints. Yeah. So good discussion on that. I think I think we're kind of getting to a good wrap up point here, and I think uptime, downtime. That's another one you had mentioned in there for data systems. I would love to see more of that as a
I would
somebody who's
too.
been robot industry. When to maintain. Those are
Hmm.
things that I know we've discussed with customers about including that capability within the API set to say the robots run 10,000 hours, probably time to do a quick check, or 20,000, 30,000, whatever set point you want to put in there,
As a
and have
customer,
that
I raised my
accessible.
hand.
I
I
think
would like to see that.
I think access to all
Yeah.
metadata is good, right? I think if we can just open that
Yes.
up, that way the user can figure out what to do with it is really great. Because there's some, like you said, how many uses, for example, like what is that thing called? The peristaltic pump, and it goes through the cassette. What is it called? Multi-dispense, the multi-flow. Like,
Oh, multi-flow.
if you
Multi-flow,
want
yes.
to keep track of how many times that cassette has gone through its iteration so you can replace it, like those are
Hmm.
interesting points to keep track of. We did like a barcode system, but it was just like scanning in, scanning out. It's tedious.
Yeah. Well, think of what the vendors could do with that if they had the capability to transmit that Internet of Things data. That's really what it would be, back to themselves and say, here's the data on all our machines in the field. It's like if Brooks knew everything about their own robots, just their robots. I don't care about your reader data, your IP. I don't care. I want to know what my robots are doing in the field. So I can talk to my distributors and say, hey, I need you guys to go out to, GSK or whatever. This robot's reaching 10,000 cycles. You probably need to go that. Or they provide that connectivity to the distributors and say, you guys have a portal. We're tracking all of our devices. We know exactly when this mean time to failure is. We're about to hit that. You better get there and be proactive in your preventative maintenance as opposed to reactive. Because downtime,
Yeah.
we talked about this before, downtime for manufacturing industries is high as far as cost is concerned. It would be for this industry as well if they took the time to calculate it.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, I've seen it. I got to see what it was like for one vendor, right, of an instrument working for an actual well-known instrument vendor versus a robot. I mean, they're two different categories. I came out of
Hmm.
it with that. It's like, you know, even using AI, or maybe not even AI, but just intelligent selection or intelligent analysis, kind of like what my car does, right? My
I was
car
gonna say the
determines the
car.
rate of, look, it's always the car. Well, hey,
It tells you
I
when it
mean,
needs an
talk
oil
about,
change, right?
it
Why can't
tells you,
your
and I
robot
was,
tell you?
Exactly.
that's exactly total mind meld there, because the that percentage is all based on rev, how you're revving the car, how aggressive you're driving the car, mileage is part of it,
Hmm.
stop and go, all those things get fed into that number. And I mean, the PM schedule, I've very rarely, after working in that instrument role for a while, I've very rarely heard about instruments that were actually using kind of well, this instrument hasn't been used that much. Just PM it anyway, right? It's like 6 months here, 9 months, 12
Hmm.
months, whatever the duration, whatever that gap is, they just use that, right? And yeah, some of these instruments, a PM is $5,000 minimum,
Yeah.
right? So let's say if you had some intelligence there, and you can say, well, we didn't use it that much. It's fine for another 6 months, right? Save another $5,000. Um, with robots, what we've tried to do, and every robot company I've ever worked for, and it's certainly our goal with what I'm doing now, is we design it for the longest duration possible, right? So that it's the last instrument you're going to touch, and
Right.
that's just the way robots go. And the reason, and that's where automotive comes into play. A lot of robot designs, modern robot designs, are built off the reliability requirement used in the automotive industry. Is that reliability requirement necessary in the lab? Probably not. There's 50 other things that are going to break before the robot,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it
But
pays huge dividends, though, for that
it
company.
does. Right. You want to be the last person getting a phone call,
Yep.
last company getting a phone call, and that's the idea. But, um, I think with some of these other instruments, you could at least lower the burden of maintenance a bit by selectively saying, well, that instrument's only got, 50 hours on it this quarter
Mhm.
versus it had 250 the last quarter, whatever it is. And, some instruments, I mean, like in the case of incubators, boy, time is everything. I mean, that thing self-degrades from the moment you press the button and you take it out of the box. It is on a
car.
path to our favorite podcaster or comedy guy from Australia, right? Jeff Destination.
Oh.
You know what?
Ozman.
Yeah, no, I love that guy. I'm glad you were sharing some of those videos because. Yeah, DF is one of the best.
If we wanted to go explicit, we could totally do it, but I'm not going to.
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh, my crikey, that one's coming in there. Look at the guns on that kangaroo, mate.
And we are doing a pitch for Ozman. So if you're watching this, go check
shout
him
out to
out.
Ozman.
Pitch
If you want
us
to throw a couple
next.
sponsors over, or at least like you did, get Russell Crowe or Chris Helmsworth on the show. That would be cool too.
I second
You
Chris
just
Hemsworth.
Would you, if you wouldn't mind, sharing the number, we can give a ring and present, I test him on the lore of Thor's hammer like you did about Australian cultural. I don't know if you've seen that one, Jeff. You would enjoy the one where he tests Russell Crowe and Chris Helmsworth on how Australian they are.
No, I'll have to dig that one up.
Oh,
I'll
dig
have
that
to
one
it
up. Man. Russell Crowe like totally throws him down. He's like, "Oh, I think Russell Crowe's more Australian than I am." He's like, I didn't think that was possible. Whereas Helmsworth got a couple things wrong in his test. But then again, the guy's been living in L.A. for so long. What do you expect? Anyway, that's our. So you second Hemsworth, Sura?
All the way, every day.
Sura just wants to touch the hammer. That's all she wants.
No. He's got a beautiful relationship I very much respect. But yeah, that guy's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Did you watch his new show
episode.
where he goes through it was on HBO, I think. He goes through beating time and aging and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. That's I've listened to the podcast of the guy he did it with, like for some of it, right? Like he fasted.
Yeah, he did the fasting thing that I do, and then he did going into the Arctic Ocean for the. Yeah, he did a bunch of cool stuff, but it was really nice because the last episode they aged him, and then he didn't realize, spoiler alert, that he walked into this ballroom and they had aged his wife, and it was just so beautiful.
Wow, you've been aged.
And they saw each other, recognized each other, and I'm totally jaded, but that was pretty cool.
It's if you want to listen, so the podcast that he was, or the guy who does the podcast that he was on one time talking about that is Peter Attia, Attia, Canadian guy. But it's called the Drive Podcast. It's right next to, I'm looking at the Apple podcast app, and it's right next to our podcast, The Helical Brew.
So if you finish ours, jump over to his.
Exactly. We're now.
Yeah, they better be giving shout outs the way we're giving shout outs because it's been 5 minutes straight of shout outs for them.
Just tag them.
Dude, definitely tag them.
Hook us up, Aussie man.
Come on,
time
Ozman.
this to time this, discussing this podcast.
We'll have the Ozman segment.
Yeah. Is anybody have any picks of the week? I don't think so.
I don't have one.
Yeah.
I know, shocker, right?
Yeah.
But you're not at home.
I
You
can
can show
show
your
Happened,
share.
Jeff.
But it's not here. It's
Yeah, he'll show it next episode.
5 hours away.
Node share. Yeah.
Oh, I have one.
Oh,
So
let's go.
this is a problem, right? I've got a beautiful French door in my bedroom, but there's just so much light and glare. So I have to hang up curtains. So I've ordered them, but you know how you've got the Stud Finder and you're just constantly waiting for it to beep correctly, and then you don't know if it's actually sometimes you get it and sometimes you lose it, or maybe this is just my problem. But I have a lot of trouble, and then I don't know if it's an actual wood stud or a metal stud, or there's a wire that I'm gonna catch. So I got this. It's the Walabot, and basically it syncs up with your phone So you put like your phone on this little guy, and then you put this side to the wall, and it provides like actual like graphic depiction of what's behind your wall. So you see the wires, and you
Oh, that's
see the
awesome.
wood, and you see the metal, and you can actually like, because I'm
So
OCD,
you can really center it.
you can center it. See, Mike feels me on this. And because you think that you've got it, and then it comes off, and you realize, oh, I must have been on the edge of it. But basically, it shows everything on your phone in the adjoining app. So it's pretty cool, and I'm super excited, and it helps my OCD soul rest.
That's actually a great perfect timing suggestion, because I haven't hung any pictures in my new townhouse, so I've been, and part of it is I just haven't bothered to go out and get a stud finder.
And it's purple, and I love purple. It's my favorite color.
Yes.
So Sura solved the problem of finding a stud in her life.
Where did you buy it? Was
Nice
that
job,
online?
sir.
To be fair, I was
or
never
Home Depot?
looking. Refer back to segment time where I said I was jaded. It's Amazon,
Just a
Mike.
few minutes ago.
Yeah, this is the only stud finder I need in my life.
And he's purple.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot my new favorite color is green.
Walbot.
Old favorite color.
Walbot.
It's pretty cool. And they show you on Amazon like what you see on your phone. But I think my problem is
Very
also
cool.
I've got like windows that are close to the edge, so you're actually like encountering the metal studs at that point, or the metal frames. And so I'm going to like do the nail, and the nail sticks. I'm like, okay, I'm in the wrong place.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
No.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's all right. Just has its own little case, and $150 looks like.
Dude, why you gotta out me like that, man?
I don't know.
I purposefully
wait, here it
didn't
is
say
for
the
20
price point.
Here it is for $25. Well, that's one mic. Hey, that's a one mic item. So no, everything has to be compared to mics. So for anyone that's wondering, a mic is equal to what, $250.
It's barely a mic. But I mean, like,
It's barely
I've
a mic.
just 3 or 4 different stud finders based on the different recommendations of my friends. They've all failed me. This one's like on target.
So next to this thing, I guess it's the purple, is a purple studded wristband.
I feel like those are based on your own personal search history. So what are you trying to tell us you want for Christmas, Mike?
How is that? I'm not even signed in.
Purple studded
Rhinestone
bracelet.
from
I'm not signed in. It's like 10 stud finders and one purple studded. I don't know, sir. What else is on this?
sending you a
company's
bedazzled
website?
bracelet.
Yeah, trying to push it over my face.
Amazon knows what you want. It's listening through your phone right now.
I'm not even signed in, so if this thing has any intelligence, it's pulling it out of pure thin vacuum air.
Oh man, I almost had it if you had been signed in. That would have been a good joke.
Yeah, right. They'd be like, gotcha. Purple studded wristband. Okay.
On mine, it
Well
showed up
done.
next to like a purple fly mask.
Well, we would like to thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Russian edition.
Ruski edition. Yeah. But I think we are, unless there's any more picks of the week or anyone has anything else they'd like to add, we will wrap up on this episode 12. And there we go.
Episode
We're going to wrap up.
12.
The best way to go check out our wonderful podcast is just go to helicobrew.com, right? If you haven't already subscribed on Spotify or iTunes podcast, that's easiest way to do it. Just go head over there. You can watch us on YouTube. That'll take you to the YouTube website. That's helicobrew.com. And from there, if you'd like to pick up on the new link tree that we set up, it's at the top of the page. You just click on the link tree on the YouTube page, for our channel page, and you'll be able to listen directly. I like the way Linktree, that's going to be my pick of the week. The way Linktree integrates our podcast hosts, right? You just tap Spotify. You don't leave the website. You can actually start playing the episode from that pop-up window. or you can go to Spotify, go to our channel within Spotify just by clicking to listen on Spotify. So I thought that was pretty slick, the way they did that. If you click on the YouTube link, of course, you're going to jump out. It's going to open up a new window. You're going to be on our our YouTube channel. So anyway, just little improvements, step by step. And the same thing is happening in our editing work. So, again, nicely done, Jeff, with our new edits and the closing page of Helical Brew. Now we've got the website information all integrated there. So it's a process. We're having fun, and we'd love to have you join us on the podcast. So until next time, this is episode 12, the Helical Brew Crew. We're out.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on The Helical Brew. We're glad to have you with us. For more episodes, please visit our website at helicalbrew.com. That's helicalbrew.com.